Every year, thousands of people vanish without a trace, but some disappearances don't just defy explanation, they defy reality itself. Towns erased from history, roads that rewrite the laws of physics, and people who seem to slip between timelines. These aren't just cases the authorities can't solve, they're events that reality itself seems to reject. And once you hear them, you'll start to wonder, how many more are out there, just waiting to be forgotten? Welcome to Unsolved Archives, where we delve into the hidden, the mysterious, and the unanswered. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your insight could be the key to unlocking the truth. The town that canceled itself. In the heart of Nebraska's flatlands, nestled between the now deserted rail line and an overgrown section of Route 68, there once existed a town known as Corwin Hills. Not allegedly, not rumored. On paper, in federal records, Corwin Hills was as real as any American town. Established in 1893 and incorporated in 1912, it appeared on maps, had property records, a functioning post office, a mayor, and over 600 registered residents. Its decline was typical of rural towns, fading industry, younger generations moving away, but even in its decline, it still existed. Until one day, it didn't. In 1981, the Nebraska Department of Transportation sent out a team to survey land for a proposed expansion of Route 68. The team, expecting to pass through Corwin Hills, drove the plotted route, GPS coordinates in hand. But when they arrived at the marked location, there was nothing. Just an endless field of prairie grass swaying under the sun, as if no road, no house, no building had ever broken its surface. Confused, they backtracked. Twice. Checked their maps. Cross-checked with analog records and multiple datasets. Everything confirmed they were in the right place. But there was no trace of the town, no foundation slabs, no asphalt, no water tower, not even a cemetery. The field was pristine and untouched. The team reported it as a clerical mistake. But when they reached out to residents in the nearest town, Hyler's Point, just 15 miles away, no one seemed to remember Corwin Hills at all. Not even the oldest residents. When shown maps and land documents with Corwin Hills clearly labeled, they'd shrug and say, "Never heard of it." One surveyor, Dean Mathers, didn't accept that answer. After returning to Lincoln, he dug into state archives and found Corwin Hills referenced in no less than 12 different government filings. Tax records listed property owners, birth certificates, vehicle registrations, even jury summons. He traced one family name, the Kellermans, who had supposedly lived on 14 Evergreen Lane. A Mrs. Nancy Kellerman had signed a 1979 census form. There was a copy of her signature in the public archive. That's when Dean did something that sent him spiraling. He called the phone number listed on Nancy's 1979 voter registration, just to see. He expected a deadline. What he got was an answer. A woman answered, her voice slightly distorted, like the line was being stretched through time. Dean introduced himself and asked if this was the Kellerman residence. The woman paused, then said, "There's no one here by that name anymore." Then the line went dead. The number, when redialed, was disconnected. Dean, now obsessed, tried to visit the plot himself. But even with coordinates and the old highway access, every attempt seemed sabotaged. Roads that should have been passable were blocked by debris or turned to dust. On his third attempt, his truck broke down on the old access road. His compass spun in a slow circle for 5 minutes. He walked 2 miles toward the supposed location on foot, only to find himself standing in the same place he started. The department shut the case down soon after. But rumors kept bubbling up. In 1983, a hunter named Ray Dorsett from Iowa was found wandering south of Route 68, dehydrated and babbling nonsense. In his backpack were photos, blurry and sun-bleached, of buildings no one recognized. One image clearly showed a street sign, Maine and Evermore, Corwin Hills. Investigators dismissed it as doctored. In 1992, an amateur ham radio operator named Mikhail Polov from Kansas recorded what he claimed was a distress signal from KHWX Corwin Hills Public Broadcasting. The message was grainy but audible, a woman's voice repeating, "We are still here." Can anyone hear Corwin Hills? We are still here. The FCC investigated. No such frequency existed. Then there's the tape. In 2005, a man named Stephen Lauder was cleaning out his late uncle's attic in Minneapolis when he discovered a box of old VHS tapes. Most were labeled with years, birthdays, holidays. But one was marked, Corwin Hills, 1980. The footage, captured on a home video recorder, showed a sleepy little town. Dirt roads, clapboard houses, children on bicycles. The town square had a banner hanging, Corwin Hills Founders Day Celebration. The camera briefly focused on a welcome sign, Welcome to Corwin Hills, population 613. What unsettled Stephen most wasn't the footage. It was that, near the end of the tape, the image distorted heavily. The sky darkened. Wind picked up. People began looking up. A distant rumble filled the microphone. Then a loud metallic screech, like a train derailing inside the earth, and the video cut off. The tape was sent to multiple analysts. They confirmed it was authentic, not tampered with, and matched video technology from the late 70s. But that brand of welcome sign didn't exist in any known Nebraska municipality. Then the tape went missing from the archive where it was stored. Today, Corwin Hills has been scrubbed from almost all official records. Modern GPS systems don't list it. Google Maps shows a grassy stretch at its former coordinates. And yet, amateur investigators occasionally uncover strange traces, a newspaper obituary citing Corwin Hills as a birthplace, or a water bill sent from a defunct utility department in its name. And then, there are those who claim they visited it, briefly. Campers who report stumbling upon a town that wasn't there on the way in, only to find no trace on the way out. One traveler described it as walking into a photograph and realizing the people inside know you shouldn't be there. But those stories never last. Websites discussing Corwin Hills tend to vanish. Threads are deleted. Podcasts citing it report strange technical failures. One YouTuber dedicated an entire series to the mystery, until he posted a final, shaky video simply titled, "They're Trying to Cancel Me Next." He hasn't uploaded since. The man who went missing in every timeline. On the night of August 3, 2009, Oliver Krantz disappeared from his apartment in Chicago. He was 29, worked as a freelance audio engineer, and lived alone in a high-rise near Lincoln Park. The building's keycard system showed no activity beyond his initial entry at 7:52 p.m. Neighbors heard no struggle, and his door remained locked from the inside. His dinner was still warm when police entered the apartment 2 days later. Nothing was stolen. No sign of forced entry. No exit recorded. Oliver had vanished, as though reality had folded and taken him with it. Initially, police treated it as a missing person case. But when they reached out to extended family for background, they were met with confusion, and then something stranger. Oliver, they said, had already been missing once before. In 2006, Aunt Martha, living in Boulder, Colorado, had filed a missing persons report 3 years earlier after Oliver, who, she claimed, had moved there in 2004, failed to return from a hiking trip. A small memorial had been held. Friends had spoken about him at a wake. A man named Daniel Baxter had even posted a tribute video online, showing photos of Oliver playing guitar at a local cafe. Yet in the Chicago version of Oliver's life, he'd never been to Colorado. His lease history showed a continuous stay in Illinois since 2002. His passport hadn't been used. No record of a hiking trip. And when investigators contacted Daniel Baxter, the video had vanished. So had Daniel. His number was disconnected. His apartment was abandoned. Still, the Chicago police chalked it up to mistaken identity. Until 2 weeks later, when a second case file appeared. This one from 2011. In Pittsburgh. It was filed retroactively and was titled, Missing Adult Male, Oliver Krantz. Same name. Same birthday. Same height and eye color. The difference. This Oliver was last seen entering a library and never coming out. Witnesses described him as quiet, polite, and anxious. The case file had been uploaded to a national database after Oliver's 2009 disappearance in Chicago, but it was marked as discovered prior. The photo attached to the Pittsburgh file was clearly Oliver, but older. In the image, he looked to be in his late 30s, despite supposedly being in his early 30s at the time. The timestamp on the photo, May 3, 2010. A year after he disappeared in Chicago. No one could explain it. Not even the database managers. One record supervisor said flatly, "The file wasn't here last week. And now it is." That's when the theory of a time loop, or something worse, began circulating among the underground investigator groups who got wind of the case. An online forum dedicated to unexplained cases posted a thread titled, "The Krantz Paradox." Users began pooling resources and found more oddities. 3 separate blog posts from different cities, all written by people named Oliver Krantz. One in 2003. One in 2008. One in 2011. All shared nearly identical writing styles and recurring phrases like, "I can feel the gravity shift," and "the sky is too smooth today." Some thought it was an ARG. Others, a hoax. But then came the envelope. In 2015, an anonymous package arrived at a small podcast studio in Michigan that had covered Oliver's story in an episode titled, "The Man Who Vanished Twice." Inside was a mini DV tape. No label. When played, it showed grainy footage of a man, unshaven, gaunt, and wide-eyed, staring into the lens in a dim room. "Don't believe what you remember," the man said. "You only know the version that stuck. I've been lost between versions for years." He looked directly at the camera and whispered, "I am Oliver Krantz in all of them." Then the tape ended. An audio analyst confirmed that the voice was 89% likely to be Oliver's, matching recordings from his prior work. Things escalated in 2017 when a woman named Lila Madsen claimed to have met Oliver twice. Once in Chicago in 2008, where they briefly dated, and once again in 2012, in Austin, Texas. Except in the second encounter, Oliver didn't recognize her. He introduced himself under the same name but claimed he was from New Jersey. She showed him old photos of them together. He grew agitated, said it was impossible, and left. She never saw him again. In the years since, sightings of Oliver have continued, each with strange inconsistencies. One version of Oliver was reported in Maine, teaching music under a different last name but matching fingerprints. Another worked in IT support in Vancouver but disappeared after someone recognized him from an online article. And in 2021, a train conductor in rural Poland submitted a video to an anonymous archive site showing a man in a hoodie pacing along a platform. The man walks directly into frame, stares at the camera, and says in perfect English, "Every time I vanish, I remember less. But I never forget you're watching." The conductor was later found dead in his cabin, a suicide note beside him with one line, "He doesn't belong to time anymore." To this day, no version of Oliver Krantz has been located or confirmed alive. His records still exist in multiple state databases, each conflicting. Social security numbers overlap. Birth records appear and vanish. Even DNA results, submitted in 2019 by a supposed sibling, were marked inconclusive due to genomic instability. Experts have called it a data corruption case, or the result of identity fraud. But those who have looked closer, they believe something else. That Oliver Krantz is not a man who vanished. He's a man who was never meant to stay. The ferry that never arrived. On June 12, 1992, the MV Dusk Wind, a passenger ferry operated by a small Baltic maritime line, departed the island of Saaremaa en route to mainland Sweden. It was a crisp, clear morning. Conditions were ideal, and the crossing was routine, scheduled to take just under 3 hours. On board were 48 passengers, including crew. Among them, a Swedish schoolteacher and her students returning from a summer exchange program, a retired German couple, a Latvian sailor, and 3 members of a local Estonian folk band. The last confirmed communication came 40 minutes into the journey. The ferry's captain, Henrik Vallis, radioed the port of Ventspils to confirm their heading and arrival time. His tone was relaxed. Weather reports showed no storms, and all systems were functioning normally. Then the signal dropped. The MV Dusk Wind never arrived. At first, authorities assumed it had veered off course or experienced a technical issue. But radar logs confirmed the vessel stayed perfectly aligned until the moment it vanished, literally disappearing from radar in open water. Search and rescue missions were launched immediately. Over the following 72 hours, dozens of boats, helicopters, and satellites scanned the expected route and beyond. No debris, no oil, no life jackets, nothing. Not even the automated emergency beacon was activated. By day 6, the families of the missing were told to prepare for the worst. The Dusk Wind was declared lost to the sea. Most assumed a freak disaster, a sudden storm, structural failure, or collision with a rogue wave. But then came the postcard. On July 3, 3 weeks after the disappearance, a woman named Helena Farstrom, whose sister, Ida, had been aboard, received a postcard at her apartment in Malmö. It bore a simple message. "It's quiet here. Different. Not bad, but not ours. Don't come looking." It was signed, Ida. The card was postmarked from Finland. That made no sense. The Dusk Wind was last seen hundreds of kilometers from Finland, and its path had never even approached its borders. The stamp was genuine. But no one could trace the post office it was sent from. Its cancellation mark came from a district code that didn't exist. More postcards followed. 2 others, one sent to the German couple's niece in Frankfurt, another to the band's manager in Riga, contained similar language. Calm. Dreamlike. Warning not to search. Public interest reignited. Some speculated a hijacking or secret detour, though what motive could exist for such an act remained unclear. The Estonian government reopened the case. A multinational investigation was formed. But then something happened that changed the tone entirely. In 2012, during a sonar survey of Lake Saimaa, a large freshwater lake in central Finland, researchers from a university expedition picked up an anomaly, an artificial structure at a depth of 80 meters. What they expected to be an old cargo barge turned out to be something else. A ship. The dive team confirmed it, a perfectly preserved vessel bearing the faded name MV Dusk Wind across the side. It shouldn't have been there. It couldn't have been there. The lake had no direct access to the sea. There was no river large enough to transport a full-sized ferry inland. The closest connection, a narrow canal, was too shallow, and no locks had been opened in decades. Yet the Dusk Wind was intact, seemingly untouched by decay. The windows were unbroken. The hull was sealed. It rested quietly on the lakebed, like it had been placed there. What disturbed the divers most was the condition of the vessel. No bodies were found inside. No signs of panic or abandonment. Chairs remained bolted to the deck. Personal items, jackets, books, instruments, were still in place. One of the beds had an impression, as if someone had slept in it recently. There was even food in a refrigerator, not spoiled but altered, desiccated and blackened, as if all moisture had been pulled from it unnaturally. The walls were strangely warped in certain spots, as though heat had twisted the metal from inside out. A kind of burn mark spiraled outward from a central point in the control room, centered around a single message scratched into the steel console. "The horizon is a door." After resurfacing, one of the divers refused to return. He later claimed that, inside the ship, he had heard what sounded like people whispering beneath the floor. "Not in panic," he said. "They sounded like they were remembering." The Finnish government sealed off the lake within days. Official reports claimed the ship was a replica, likely a hoax. But the photos leaked before the shutdown tell a different story. The coordinates were wiped from public maritime records. The lead investigator resigned. A few years later he was found dead in his home, surrounded by dozens of hand-drawn maps with no discernible landmarks, only symbols that repeated, spirals, doorways, and variations of the Duskwind's hull drawn upside down. One final note. A Finnish fisherman, before the lake was closed, claimed to have seen lights just beneath the water. On certain nights, he said, he could hear faint music playing from the deep, slow accordion notes, drifting upward, like someone was still sailing. The student who vanished from his own surveillance footage. Miles Park was a quiet, meticulous student at Emberlin College, a small liberal arts university in Massachusetts. He was majoring in mathematics, kept to himself, and was known for his punctuality. On the night of November 4, 2015, Miles returned to his dormitory at 8:17 p.m. after a study session in the campus library. Security footage captured him entering the building, nodding to a fellow student in the hallway, and unlocking his door. That was the last time anyone saw him. The next morning, his roommate returned from an overnight trip to find Miles' bed made, his phone on his desk, and his backpack still half-zipped on the floor. Nothing had been taken: wallet, keys, ID, laptop, everything was untouched. There were no signs of a struggle, no broken locks, no strange prints. Campus security was notified immediately. At first, they assumed he had gone for a walk or stayed at a friend's room. But as hours turned to days, and no one reported hearing from him, the situation escalated. Then came the review of the dormitory's hallway footage. A total of 4 cameras covered the floor, 1 at each end of the hallway, and 2 positioned to capture the central corridor and entrances to rooms. The footage was clean, crisp. Miles was clearly seen entering at 8:17 p.m. He waved to another student, Daniel Lorne, who confirmed the sighting. Hours of footage were scrubbed, reviewed, slowed down. At 11:01 p.m., Miles' door opened. He stepped out, now wearing a hoodie and sweatpants. He walked casually toward the hallway bathroom. But something happened halfway down the hall. He vanished. Not suddenly, not like a jump cut. Instead, his body began to fade as he walked, step by step, as if someone was slowly turning a dial on his existence. 1 foot lifted, the other touched the ground, and halfway through the stride, he dissolved into empty space. The video never skipped a frame. The hallway lights continued to flicker. Another student passed by 5 minutes later and didn't even glance in the direction where it happened. Investigators thought it was a software error. The IT department reviewed the original source file, no evidence of corruption. The footage was authenticated by 2 independent forensics teams. The digital timestamp showed no breaks, no tampering. It was, by all measures, real. The university quietly contacted federal authorities. The footage was seized. Campus administration warned students not to spread rumors, but the whispers grew. Some students swore they saw Miles that night, not just in the hallway but outside, near the woods behind campus. Others claimed they had dreams of him calling out from a tunnel they couldn't reach. One girl reported hearing knocks on her door at exactly 11:01 p.m. every night for a week, always followed by silence. She transferred mid-semester. When Miles' laptop was unlocked by authorities, they found one strange file on the desktop, titled simply, Exit log _1. Inside was a single line of code. If observer equals false, then disappear. His professors couldn't explain it. Miles had never studied programming. More strange details surfaced. Miles had, months prior, submitted a paper for a philosophy elective that discussed the concept of perceptual persistence, the theory that things only exist while being observed. He had written, if enough variables agree on a version of you, that version persists. But if even one variable diverges, what happens to that version? That professor dismissed the theory as pseudo-intellectual nonsense at the time. After the incident, he reportedly requested an immediate sabbatical. A group of students obsessed with fringe science began their own investigation. They dubbed the event the Observer Collapse. Some believed Miles had been experimenting with quantum thought loops or had become aware of a reality overlay that glitched. Others said he had simply stepped into a space he wasn't meant to see, what they called the blind zone, a moment in spacetime where surveillance and memory fail. Then, there were the emails. 3 weeks after his disappearance, 3 students, all from the same dormitory, received identical emails. No sender, No header. Just a subject line. Did you see me? The body of the email was blank. Security swept the campus servers. No trace. IT claimed no outgoing or incoming activity at those times. The network logs had large chunks of missing time, exactly 41 seconds blacked out on each student's IP. They thought it was over. The footage was locked away. The incident quietly erased from university statements. A memorial page was created. Students moved on. Until graduation day, 4 years later. On May 13, 2019, as students gathered for the ceremony, a local journalist covering the event snapped dozens of crowd photos for a blog. Among the smiling faces, in the background of one image, half obscured by a pillar, stood a young man, wearing a hoodie and sweatpants. His face blurry, almost out of sync with the rest of the image. Several alumni recognized him instantly. It was Miles. He wasn't listed on any guest list. His name wasn't in the database of attendees. He never crossed the stage. But the image was undeniable. The photo was uploaded, then disappeared within hours. So did the blog. Today, those who still remember Miles Park claim they sometimes see him in dreams, not as himself, but as a flicker in the corner of their mind's eye. A figure walking down a hallway that no longer exists. And every time he turns, halfway through a stride, and vanishes. Exit 43, the road you can't return from. It was known only by long-haul truckers, late-night drifters, and the occasional lost tourist. Exit 43A, off U.S. Route 191 in rural Nevada. It wasn't listed on most GPS systems. No official state maps recorded it. But drivers swore it existed, an old, cracked off-ramp with a green highway sign so faded it looked sun-bleached to blankness. The legend was always the same. You'd be driving through the high desert at night, maybe half awake, watching the moonlight bounce off endless sand and rock. And then you'd see the sign, Exit 43A, no services. Nothing unusual. But if you took it, they said, you wouldn't come back the same. Or at all. In July of 2006, trucker Joel Ramirez radioed dispatch at 3:14 a.m. to report that he'd missed a scheduled checkpoint. He was confused, tired, and off route, but swore he hadn't made any wrong turns. His last transmission was unnerving. I think I'm on 43A. I don't know where it leads. There's a sun. There's another sun. His rig was later found, engine off, in the parking lot of a shuttered roadside motel over 600 miles from his last known position. The cab was empty. All mirrors had been turned inward. That was the beginning. Over the next decade, Exit 43A began showing up in scattered reports. People would post on trucker forums, Reddit threads, even paranormal blogs. I drove for 20 minutes and never passed a single tree, sign, or rock. Just asphalt and wind. The radio cut out, but the speakers kept playing something. Like my own thoughts on repeat. The road bends. But it doesn't. It's like you're turning, but you never change direction. A woman named Tessa Long, a van lifer documenting her solo road trips on YouTube, uploaded a video in 2013 titled, The Exit That Wasn't There Yesterday. In the footage, she shows her dashcam following a dimly lit off-ramp that isn't on her GPS. She jokes nervously about getting murdered in the desert, but keeps driving. The last frame of the video shows a long, straight road vanishing into shimmering blackness. Her voice trails off. Wait, is that water? Or? The feed cuts out. Her channel was never updated again. By 2017, the stories grew darker. A search and rescue team investigating the disappearance of 2 hikers near the area reported finding tire tracks leading directly to where Exit 43A should have been. Only there was nothing there, just scrubland and dry dirt. No concrete. No signage. The tracks ended in a perfect circle, as if the vehicle had been lifted and spun in place before vanishing. But one case changed everything. In 2019, a man named Darren Holtz, a civil engineer and amateur cartographer, attempted to debunk the Exit 43A rumors. Armed with LiDAR scanners, GPS triangulation gear, and a customized drone, he began a YouTube series titled Lost Roads. In episode 4, he announced he had found it. He live-streamed the entire event. Darren's dashcam showed him pulling off what appeared to be a narrow, crumbling off-ramp with no road sign. Desert scrub gave way to sharp, unnatural-looking rock formations. The road stretched forward, arrow-straight, under a sky that looked wrong. Dimmer. Slightly too slow in how it moved. "My clock says 3:27 p.m., Darren said. "But the sun's in the east. That's not possible." His voice grew more agitated as he drove. At one point, he stopped the vehicle and held up a printed map. It didn't match what was outside. He had marked his location digitally, but when he checked the tracker, his device showed no movement at all. According to this, I never left the highway. Then came the sound. A long, low droning noise, like a distant foghorn underwater. Darren muttered, "There's no ocean for hundreds of miles," before stepping out of the vehicle with his camera. What he filmed next was seen live by over 4,000 viewers. A structure, barely visible, loomed on the horizon. Towering, skeletal, like scaffolding made of bone and rust. It pulsed, in sync with the sound. Darren whispered, "It's breathing," before the feed glitched, flickered, and went dark. Attempts to locate him failed. The live stream archive disappeared within 24 hours. His car was found 2 months later, abandoned in Utah, interior covered in black dust, windshield cracked from the inside. On the dashboard, in marker, "The road remembers." Since then, reports of Exit 43A have slowed, but not stopped. A hitchhiker in 2021 claimed he was picked up by a man in a dusty truck who insisted they stay on the highway no matter what. He told the hitchhiker, "If we take that road, it won't just forget us. It'll rewrite us." The man dropped him off, then drove back toward the desert. The truck was later found upside down, partially fused with the pavement. No body was ever recovered. Some say Exit 43A is a government test site. Others believe it's a bleed-through from another dimension. A few think it's older than any road, something that existed before maps, pretending to be part of our world. Whatever it is, it waits. And if you ever find yourself on Route 191, tired and alone, and see a sign for an exit that shouldn't be there, don't take it. Because once you leave the known road, it doesn't always let you come back. Every case adds a new layer of mystery, leaving more questions than answers. Which one lingers in your mind, and what's your take on what really happened?